Greetings and salutations, comic book conversationalists. This is Comic Book Hangover. My name is Scott, and we're going to do something a little bit different this week. I'm going to try to actually have my books read on Wednesday night so that I could do a video sooner and do week of reviews. So there will be spoilers in this as I go through my stack. What I'm going to do is show you the book. If I got something to say about it, I'll say something about it. Then I move on to the next book. So we are going to start with this week's facsimile reprint. It seems like lately my Marvel buying has been less about new books and more about facsimiles. So keeping up with that, I have Wolverine at number 88, facsimile edition right there. I believe this is the first fight between Deadpool and Wolverine. Makes sense that they put that out this week because this is the week that the new Deadpool movie starts at a theater near you. So there is that. Great cover. I love it. It's amazing. And I'm going to try to get some more light in here. Beautiful. All right. So moving on, we have Void Rivals number 11. Still keeping it. This book here, as I've said in other videos, this book kind of started off a little slow. And that was because there was a lot of story building that needed to be done. There's a lot of world building that needed to be done. We had new characters in here and new concepts. So with that, we didn't get all the action that we're getting in the G.I. Joe and the Transformers comics because we had to really introduce these characters. But now that we know these characters, we're getting ready to wrap up the second story arc. Issue 12 is a second story arc finale. And we are getting into more action, more excitement, along with the world building. We're introducing still more Transformers. We're introducing Quintessons. We're introducing all kinds of cool concepts and characters from the Transformers animated series, the original animated series. And it's really helping this book out, I think. Because I got to be honest, I do appreciate that they were doing the world building, but it started to get a little boring after a while. But it's starting to pick up. It's still a great series. The whole Energon universe has been a lot of fun, has been absolutely amazing. The next one is Godzilla versus Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 2, number 4 of 5, which is also this week's longest title of the week. Really not much you can really say about this. You've got the Power Rangers have sort of amalgamated with the Kaiju. So you have, I think the Green Ranger is using Godzilla's powers. Pink Ranger, I think, is Mothra. So you're amalgamating them, and then the Godzilla Kaiju villains are amalgamated with the Psycho Rangers, and they're using characters like Gigan, Hedorah or Hedra, King Ghidorah, Destroya, and one other one that I can't really seem to remember. Oh, Batra, I think was the other one. But still a lot of fun. Really not much more you can say about it. It's just a lot of fun. If you're a fan of Power Rangers and a fan of Godzilla, you need to be checking this book out. The last one, and this is the one I do want to talk about more than any other book. So there's going to be spoilers. There's probably going to be, there's really not a lot that I can say about this book that's going to be positive. But this is from Ani Press. They're much hyped return of EC Comics, return of the horror stories of EC Comics, Epitaphs from the Abyss, number 1. This is a 5-issue miniseries, and we do have variant covers, and then those 2 covers that they have for the variants also have foil covers, and there's the sketch cover. There's all kinds of stuff to it. So this is supposed to be the return of EC Horror. And they've got another one coming out, supposed to be a return of EC Sci-Fi. The thing is, while the whole it's nice to see the classic EC. You want to say the classic EC cover, trade dress, and that sort of thing. We are missing the Ghoul Lunatics. This was honestly strike one for me with this idea of bringing back EC Comics. Is you're going to have a horror book without the Ghoul Lunatics. No Crypt Keeper, no Vault Keeper, no Old Witch. They're not even mentioned in this issue. You instead introduce another character called, I think he's called Grave Digger or Grave Keeper. I don't know. Because he's only in the beginning. He has 1 full page, and he tells you what the stories are going to be about, and then you get the stories. He shows up at the end where he kind of talks about the last story, but there's no interaction there. There's no. One of the things that made the EC books the horror books in particular, the Vault of Horror, the Haunt of Fear, and Vault of Horror, Haunt of Fear, Tales from the Crypt, also Crypt of Terror. What made them great was one of the functions of them that made them great were the Galunatics, were the horror hosts, and how they set up the story, and they were the ones that were telling you the story, unless a character in the story was your narrator. But usually it was one of the three that was telling you the story, and they would wrap it up with wonderful little quips and jokes and whatnot. And they had this banter between each other as well, where they're always trying to one up each other and say, well, that story was okay. Vault Keeper's story was okay, but here's a real horror story. The Crypt Keeper would go into his whole thing. And each of the Galunatics also had their sort of, they had an artist that was specific to that character, which was awesome. And each one also had their own sort of subgenre of horror story that they told. So when you talked about, when you read an old witch story, written and illustrated by Ghastly Graham Ingalls, you knew what kind of a story you're going to get with his art style and his storytelling style, just like with Crypt Keeper and Vault Keeper. You didn't get any of that in this one. There's no interaction with the supposed host, and you don't really get to know him. He has no personality. The art and the stories, some of the stories have pretty decent art. Some of the stories really very much lackluster. Here, let's do it this way. Here, yeah, okay, he's Gravedigger right there. Not very interesting guy. Each of the stories, had different art style. The thing with this is, and the reason why it suffers from not having the horror hosts, is when you go from one story to the next, like right here, you don't really get a wrap up. You don't get anything like that at all. It just says the end. Here's your next story, and it just doesn't flow very well. Especially if you're like me, I'm a huge fan of EC Comics. I love EC Comics. So as a fan, when they say we're bringing back the EC style, the EC format, there's a certain level of expectation that you have with that, and those expectations were not met at all. There's also the matter of the stories themselves. And I was kind of worried about this by some of the things that were being said when they were interviewing the creatives on this book, that they're going to talk about politics, and that there are certain people in politics that needed to be made fun of, that needed to be mocked or whatever, which was never really the function of an EC comic. So that right there told me that these guys really had no idea what they were talking about. But then you have stories like this one here. What is this one called? Senator, about a reporter who is trying to find out why a conservative, and the word conservative is the fifth word in the story. They mention conservative. There's one, there's two, three times? Yeah, there's three times. And the word liberal is in there a couple of times. So already we're setting up that this is going to be a politically charged story. And then you get into, it's about this senator who was a pro-life conservative or a pro-choice conservative or something. Don't really remember, because the story really was not that interesting, because it attacked the conservative side of the political argument about abortion. This was not something that belonged in an EC comic. Okay, this is not something that we need. And even the so-called twist at the end was really stupid. Kind of saw it a mile away. It was not very good. And there was another story in here that's what was the last story in this? Was Us versus Us. This one was, first off, you have this whole thing here where you see the house is on fire and people are screaming in there, and she's yelling Junior, and I thought maybe there was a kid still in there, and why is he trying to take her away from the kid? But no, his name is Junior. So we fumbled the ball in the first panel of this story, but then this becomes a vaxxer versus anti-vaxxer story, which takes the side of, if you're anti-vaxxer, then you're some you're some kind of an idiot that doesn't know what you're talking about, and it's. The book failed on every level, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Epitaphs from the Abyss by Omni Press failed on absolute every possible level that it aspired to be when you think EC Comics. Now, yeah, EC Comics, it did talk about some political issues, some social political issues. They talked about racism. They talked about, hate and bigotry and just people losing their minds over certain things. But it was done in the context of, this is the general, like, racism is bad. There is no reason to be to be racist. Anti-Semitism is bad. There's no reason to hate people who are Jewish. Absolutely no reason at all. So the original ECs, when they would do these, which they would there was a word for them, and I can't remember, preachies, I think they called them. They're mostly in the crime suspense stories and the shock suspense stories books. But they were taken from a neutral position, saying, this is how, in general, this is how we as society should function. This book here took a side. It took a side, and it took the liberal side. It took the left-leaning side, and used that to sort of attack conservatives. And I know the comics industry is wildly liberal. They've shown their stripes since 2016 and have lost their collective mind since 2016. But it's time this crap needs to stop. When I heard that EC was coming back, I was excited about this. But then when more I read about it and saw what they were going to use these stories for, the less I became excited about it. And then I actually picked up the book, and I was disgusted. I was honestly thoroughly and completely disgusted by what they have done to the EC. And I thought we couldn't get any worse than what Paper Cuts did to EC Comics, some 10 years or so ago, when they did what they wanted to do and try to pass off as an EC comic. But this is actually worse, because that was mostly just the art. But this is the art and the stories. The stories were horrible. I will not be picking up the rest of this. They've got another EC book coming out. What is this called? I don't really think I even care anymore. Cruel Universe, I think it's called. Not even going to check it out. Not even going to look at it. Won't be on my pull list. This is not going to be on my pull list. It's as a personal opinion, which is all this is, just a personal opinion. This is an insult to the legacy of EC Comics, which makes me happy that Dark Horse Comics is publishing the EC archives. So if you're curious about what EC was actually all about, when you had great artists and great writers and great storytelling, when you could have a story that was 4 to 6 pages long, but felt like a full page comic book because they were written so well. If you want to experience that, then check out the EC archives from Dark Horse Comics. I've got a bunch of them that I've done, that I've gotten here. I get them once a month, and I love them. They're great. This is garbage. This is trash. This is horrible. And I don't think I've ever said so much negative about a comic book the entire time that I've been doing these reviews. But this actually hits me where this hits me with a publisher that I have a lot of love and respect for and admiration for. And what they've done to it is insulting. And I hope that when we get these 5 issues out of the way, and the other 5 issues for Cruel Universe or whatever the hell it's called, once those are done, I hope this is all forgotten, because these books are horrible. And that said, however, if you did read them and you enjoyed them, more power to you. More power to you. I'm glad that somebody's enjoying this drivel that's being written and being passed off as EC. But that aside, I think I'm going to wrap this up, because I really I really don't want to talk trash about a comic book more than I already have. It's not usual for me, because I always try to look for the positive. I guess one positive, if I have to come up with one, is the cover here, the cover, the art box there. I mean, that kind of has an EC feel to it, but beyond that, past the cover, it's pure garbage. The twists weren't good, the stories weren't good, the art wasn't good. The tone wasn't right. There was nothing about it that hit any of the expectations that I personally had for EC, for these EC revivals. But that aside, I do have my Uncanny X-Men 268 facsimile edition poster up. A new Godzilla picture there. So on these rare weeks when I don't have a Godzilla book to talk about or share with you guys, I will have this picture up at all times. So that said, I hope everybody had a great new comic book day. Epitaph from the Abyss was a complete and total miss, but there's a lot of other great books that came out this week. I think DC is they finally geared up their Absolute Power storyline. Blood Hunt is still continuing from Marvel, and Marvel's also got their X-Men from the Ashes coming out. I think that started a week or 2 ago. So some great stuff. Hope everybody's enjoying their comics. I will see everybody next week with a new stack of books. Hopefully something better than Epitaphs from the Abyss. Have a good one.